Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this morning's virtual hearing. If I can ask, well, first of all, before we start, can you all just give me a wave just so as I can check that you can all hear me? That's good, thank you. Mr. Vivian, I still can't see you, but I assume you can still hear me.
Yeah, I can still hear you. I'm wondering whether I should try and rejoin the meeting to see if that unfreezes me.
Well, yeah, but it's up to you. If you want to, please do that. I'm just going through the usual formalities which you've heard already, so you won't miss anything crucial in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, okay, I'll try that then. I'll come out and come back in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and if everyone else can, for the moment, whilst it's just me speaking, if you can mute your microphones, please, just to stop any interference. So my name is David Liddell. For those of you who are new to these hearings, I'm the reporter appointed by ministers to determine appeal reference PPA-240-2065 relating to land at Crownerland Farm at Whitecross. And you met my colleague Callum, who'll be listening in and can help us out, hopefully, if we have any further IT issues. Now, this is hearing number 2 on junction 4 of the M9, although it's the 4th of the hearings to be held. And I'll ask parties to introduce themselves in a minute, but I just need to do a few formalities first of all. Can see you now, Mr. Vivian, that's good. For those participating, as I said, please keep your video on, but turn your sound to mute except when you're speaking. And for those observing only, please turn both your video and your sound off. So a reminder that this meeting will be recorded. I'm afraid, Mr. Vivian, you are going to have to listen to this all again. You got in back in time. It will be stored as part of the DPA's webcast archive and will be capable of repeated viewing. I will, though, don't need to say that. I have the discretion to terminate or suspend filming if, in my opinion, allowing filming to continue would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting. By participating in the virtual meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images and sound recordings and any information pertaining to you contained in them for webcasting and training purposes, and for the purposes of keeping historical records, making those records available to the public. And further details can be found on about the DPA privacy policy on the DPA section of the gov.scot website. I don't think anyone is in the same room, but if they are, please observe any relevant COVID-19 related measures. If not, I might be forced to suspend the meeting. And finally, I just want to say thank you for agreeing to participate in today's hearings. So again, Mr. Campbell, for the appellant, can you please introduce yourself for the benefit of the other parties?
Certainly, I'm John Campbell. I'm a Queen's Counsel at the Scottish Bar, representing the applicants, appellants, and I'm accompanied today by Duncan Birrell of Modus Transport and Colin Murchison, who is somewhere, I can't see him. I think he's observing. Yes, he's observing, but not taking part. And we're instructed Angela McCracken, who's also observing but not taking part.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Campbell.
I've had trouble. Sorry, I've had trouble unmuting my microphone, and I got Callum to do it for me. But I'm in a very quiet house, so there shouldn't be any problem with background noise. But if there is, please tell me.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Birrell, could you please introduce yourself?
Yep, Duncan Birrell, Modus Transport Solutions, representing the appellant on traffic and transport grounds.
Good morning. As we go through this, if you see me seemingly bowed and saying nothing, it's just because I'm writing my notes after someone's speaking, so don't be alarmed by it. And for the council, Mr. Vivian.
Yes, hello, Brent Vivian. I'm Senior Planning Officer in the Development Management Unit at Falkirk Council. I'm the case officer that dealt with the planning application and the current appeal.
Thank you. And Mr. Collins?
Good morning, my name's Kevin Collins. I'm the Transport Planning Coordinator for Falkirk Council, who were a consultee on the planning application in terms of transportation issues.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. And Mr. Short, finally, for the council.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ken Short. I'm a Transport Planning Officer for Falkirk Council Transport Planning Section. I responded to the planning application for transport planning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Short. Mr. Vivian, so Mr. Crawford, he will be with us for hearing 3. So is he available this morning? If we need to, or if we can make an earlier start?
Yeah, he's on standby, so we would just need to contact him.
Okay, that's great. I anticipate we'd be able to do that. We could take a short break. Everyone can gather their thoughts and get ready for the next session. But hopefully we could get through a fair bit of the second session this morning, just to make sure we have no issues with time. And finally, on behalf of Transport Scotland, Mr. MacDonald.
Yes, good morning, everyone. John MacDonald. I'm a quality manager on behalf of Transport Scotland. I'm the signatory to Transport Scotland's planning consultation response to the application and dealing with the responses to planning across the country.
Thank you, Mr. MacDonald. And finally then, Mr. Gillespie.
Hi, Jason Gillespie of Sistra Limited. We are term consultants to Transport Scotland with regard to all matters development management related, and I was responsible for reviewing the planning application referred to Transport Scotland.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So hopefully you have the agenda for the hearing, which Smeera, the case officer, sent out a couple of weeks ago, I think now. I've tried to give people a fair chance to comment on each of the matters we discuss. If I've not done so, or if you want to come in at a particular point, then just raise your hand or just speak up if I haven't noticed you. I have confirmed that you can ask questions of each other through me, but I'll only allow that to the extent that I think it will help me understand the evidence before me or the positions of the parties. And that's the sole purpose of having the meeting. So I have a series of questions to ask. Not very many, as I say, this morning. But still, what will be most helpful and time efficient will be just to answer the questions I ask. Sometimes the answer might be a simple yes or no. There's nothing wrong with that. And you don't need to go over the written material just for the sake of it. But if you do need to go over something just so as I can understand it better, then that's fine, of course. And in terms of the documents today, there's several documents that I want to refer to for the second hearing today, and so I think at the end of this session I'll tell you which ones those are so that you can make sure you have them available. As far as the morning's concerned, not very many. Probably the drawing of the junction, the drawing of the junction upgrade that was prepared by Dougal Bailey Associates, I think for the Gilson developers previously. I'm probably going to want to have a quick look at that, but I don't expect to spend much time discussing it. So that might be it. Yeah, and as I said, hopefully we can have a short break and then move on to hearing 3. But let's take stock when we come to the end of this meeting. So the first agenda well, first of all, I should say, does that sound okay to everyone? Is there any questions or concerns about the agenda?
No, it's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the first item was the potential for a scheme to mitigate the adverse effects on the A801 armed junction from the appeal proposal alone. And in response, so that was my question, L3, and in the council's response, in the appellant's response to the question, it stated that there might be scope for minor widening. Mr. Burrow, can you just explain what that might mean? Are we talking about an extra lane or not as extensive as that?
No, probably the scope within the verge around the roundabout to increase the flare length. So it's more providing the facility for 2 cars to queue side by side at the junction. Just now, there is a flare on the junction. The road markings aren't the best, but if there's a my recollection is a street lighting column. From that point forward, we could increase the flare length at the junction. The RFC that's recorded is only, I think it's 0.87 or 0.88, so we're only a fraction off the guidance. So I think there's physical measures that could be done at relatively inexpensive cost to improve the performance of that arm of the junction.
Okay, so instead of queuing all in a single file, there might be for one or two cars lengths, there might be the chance to open it up. So
it can queue in two vehicles side by side just now, but it's to try and extend that so you can have more possibility for more cars to queue side by side.
I see, I understand. And what approaches are we talking about for doing that?
That's just the A801 approach, which was the one that was highlighted in the TA.
Okay, so that's the southbound approach on the northbound approach onto the roundabout.
Yeah.
Northbound.
Okay, so that's not doing a part of this DBA Dougal Bailey Associates drawing. This is just a different type of. This would be a different type of mitigation. It's not a portion of that drawing.
It's not, no, but it could be made to be part of that. You could future-proof it by making it fit in with, because it would be a pointless exercise to do it and then go back in and rip it all up. So, yeah, there would be scope to future-proof it and make it almost part of the Dougal Bailey drawing.
Okay, thank you. I suppose a question then for the council. I don't know who's best placed to answer it, but I just wondered whether is this the kind of thing which the council thinks, if there was to be an intentions notice and you were to be going away to agree planning obligations, is this the kind of thing you think could be resolved as part of the discussions on a planning obligation, i.e. the kind of thing I don't really need to get too involved in and being too directive about at this stage, the kind of thing that one would normally leave to the parties to agree amongst themselves. So, yeah, do you think this sounds like something you could resolve between question to the council?
And we need to look at the details of it. I mean, it comes back to we're talking about this in isolation here. We need to get details of that and see what we felt about that. But the details of what see if we felt it would be sufficient for that. If Kevin's got anything else to add to that.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm just trying to get my technical thing out of the way to get my unmute working. Just in terms of what Ken was saying, we don't have any real details of it at the moment to see whether it would be something that would be fit for purpose. I understand what Duncan was saying earlier on. To look at future proofing, we would need to actually have a certain level of detail to be comfortable with. If we're looking at this development in isolation, we have continually put it together with a cumulative impact because there's two other development sites in a close proximity that impact on this junction as well that do have a current allocation in the recently adopted local development plan. So we're looking at not this in isolation, but in terms of cumulative impact. What if it's taken forward in isolation? If these other development sites don't come forward to follow out the plan, we would require something to be submitted on behalf of the Crownerland development that we would be satisfied with mitigate their development site in isolation. But at the moment, we're having to look at it in terms of the cumulative impact of the two other large-scale development sites. And as Duncan quite rightly pointed out in his statement as well, whatever's proposed, as long as it sits well with the wider scheme of works at the moment, I think we need to make sure that it's not works that are superseded and cease to become of any use. It's a bit of a, I would say in general terms, not good use of resources in that respect from the developer. In that respect, they spent money on a scheme that basically gets ripped out by someone else to do a bigger scheme of works. If we can actually make sure that these works in isolation, if that's the way it goes ahead, that they don't impact and don't stop the other wider works going ahead, if they can sit there as part of those wider works, if that can be done and to future-proof it, as Duncan says, then that's an avenue we could explore. But until we get some details on that, of what the actual proposals are to give it a valid judgment, then that's the position we're in at the moment.
Okay. No, I mean that's fine. I'll come back if anyone's got another point to make. Yes, two things, I suppose. I appreciate you would need to see further details of it. I was just interested in whether this was the kind of thing that sounded, Mr. Vivian, I can see it up back in a second, whether this was the kind of thing that might be worth discussing or might be resolvable, not trying to get you to pin the colours to the mast. Also, I take the point about the wider cumulative effects, and council's referred to that as evidence. I suppose at this point I'm just interested in the what if scenario if these other developments doesn't happen. But that's a useful point that both Mr. Birrell and then you made, Mr. Collins, about it. It would be sensible that it can be incorporated into a further more extensive works at the junction. Anyway, that's fine. Mr. Vivian, I think you were wanting to say something, and Mr. Campbell maybe after that.
Yeah, I was just to suggest. I'm sure my colleagues will come in if they have anything further to say. But I would have thought through the section 75, if we are going down the route eventually of just a standalone scheme for this application only, then we could build in a suitable trigger into the section 75 to bring forward a scheme of mitigation for us to consider for our approval.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Campbell, did you want to say something?
I did, sir, just to emphasise that this question, which we're all trying to answer, is, of course, a hypothetical one on the basis that neither of the other two developments comes forward. It wouldn't be reasonable in my submission to hold up a consent, if that was your decision, in order to wait for others over whom we have no control to make up their minds whether they're bringing their schemes forward. I understand the council's wish to have everything on a plate at once, but that simply isn't possible where developments aren't in sequence, and I'm sure you can see that. The second point to make is in relation to Mr. Vivian's response, and one I made last week, which is that we still don't have a draft Section 75 agreement. So he would, I think, if I may say so, need to explain what he means by a trigger for additional junction improvements, and to let us see it in writing, or let the inquiry see it in writing. But in the absence of that, if this were an inquiry, which it's not, of course, I think I would be submitting that you shouldn't be holding up your final recommendation because of a desire by the council to see everything on a plate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Campbell. I'll give Mr. Vivian a chance to comment on that if he wants. Yeah, there is an absence of detail like that generally in the case because agreement couldn't be reached on these matters. So, for example, when we talked this afternoon, one of the questions is about trigger points in terms of units built for requiring any works on Mirehead Road, and the council's position is that it should all happen before the development proceeds, and I think the appellant's position is probably the other end of the scale or somewhere along the line. So these are matters which it hasn't been possible to agree. Ordinarily, in my position, one wouldn't try and pin that down. You would leave it to the parties, but it's the lack of ability to agree in any of this which puts us in this position. So you said a trigger there, Mr. Vivian. Did you have any? I mean, I wouldn't expect you would have a figure in mind here, because this is something you would have to go away and think about. But do you have anything else to say in response to Mr. Campbell's points here?
Well, only broadly that we would first have to get to the point where we're satisfied that both Gilston and Manual Works are not coming forward. And at that point, I suggest we would need to consider a standalone scheme appropriate for this proposed development at that point in time, which I would think the developer would then submit to us for our approval. And obviously there's a bit of thought to go into that, but I would have thought in principle that we could find a way around that in terms of trying to build it into a Section 75 without it's actually holding up the progression of the conclusion of the legal agreement.
Okay, I'm going to ask whether Transport Scotland's got any anything to add to this discussion on this point.
More in general terms, it's more as a local road arm approaching the trunk road. Our interests are the slip roads. I think more in a comment would be we would leave it between the parties to discuss that, but as long as it's without prejudice to the wider scheme and any contributions coming forward from this site towards that wider scheme, I wouldn't want to see it as an either or. This would be a local agreement between the developer and the local authority. Our own interest that it doesn't impinge or impact on the ability to deliver the wider scheme.
Okay, thank you. So this is where my Daft Larry question comes in. Who operates? I'm presuming it's Transport Scotland that operates the junction, but where does its bit of the road end, and where does the council's bit start?
If you just bear with me, what I'll do is you won't be able to see it. I'll just look on. We have a mapping system which shows the exact areas that we. I may be able to share it, but I'll certainly describe it to you if you bear with me. Just a small second.
Okay, sorry to surprise you with that one.
No, don't worry, unless Jason has looked at it in the past. I would expect it's just the slip roads are ours, and the circulatory area, and the other arms would be the council's, but I'll just confirm that.
Yeah, I would have thought that as John was saying, I would have thought that only the slip roads would be the Transport Scotland's element of it. I don't have any as well, I would assume.
Yes, I've got the mapping in front of us. Obviously, the M9 over the top, but our interests are the on and off slips at Junction 4. The circulatory area and all other approaches are the local authority's responsibility.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So, yeah, so when I see that that scheme that had been prepared earlier by Dougal Bailey Associates, it seems to show some works taking place to the slip roads, the exit slip roads for the most part, it looks like, and then, but also, which would be in your interest, if you like, of the land under that you're interested in, but elsewhere it's to the roundabout and to certainly certainly the southbound approach to the roundabout. That's what it looks like. So that wider scheme would involve both Transport Scotland interests and council interests. Yeah,
indeed.
Okay. I just wanted to ask if people were fine on that point. You mentioned it, Mr. Birrell, this the RFC of 0.85, and you, I think you referred to guidance, and the council also referred to that figure earlier in its evidence. So I just wanted to clarify. It seems that there's agreement that 0.85 is the kind of target figure, if you like. But I was also wanted to ask, what guidance is that from? Mr. Birrell, maybe you can.
Yeah, so it's the target. Well, it's not the target figure, but it's the upper level of ratio of flow to capacity from the Arcady software that we use to model roundabouts. It's a sort of industry standard software package. So beyond a point of a value of 0.85, the operation that arm of the junction starts to degrade, and you can get excess queuing and delays. So that's why the target is kind of set at 0.85.
Okay, thank you. And for the council, that description there given by Mr. Burrell, the council doesn't take any issue with that?
No, that's what we accept as well. 0.85 is this industry standard over which it's felt that mitigation work should be required.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that if we're content, then I can move on. Hopefully, question L6. We've covered that now, so that means I can move on to the second part of the agenda, which was again accepting the points that have been made about the need to consider what's happening at Gilston and what's happening at Manuel Works as well. However, I'd asked question 4 about when a contribution might need to be paid back, and question 5 and covered that as well. So just thinking of the two of them together, so the council accepts that it would be reasonable to refund a contribution if Gilston and Manuel Works don't proceed. It's not suggested a cut-off point to me in terms of number of years. Now, the appellant suggests if it were to make a contribution for that wider scheme, if the money hadn't been spent 5 years after completion of the last house on the appeal development, then the obligation should provide for that money to be repaid. So what does the council think of that suggestion?
I mean, that concern says that if Gilston and Manuel Works has been on for a long time, when do we determine when it needs to be? We would have to say that if it was taken out a local development plan, we would have thought that at that stage they wouldn't be going forward. I think we feel that 5 years would be too short a time spell after the completion. We don't know when these other two developments are going to, or what the timescale is for them going forward.
Okay, well, if there is to be a planning obligation, this matter is going to have to be discussed and agreed. So does the council have another length of time it would suggest, or some other way that it would suggest this could be handled?
Kevin, have you got anything you want to add at this stage?
I can add in something. We had a discussion about this the other day there. I think we would be probably looking more favourably, probably a 10-year period, given the length of time it would take. 5 years we think is a bit short, even if Gilston and the Manuel Works come forward in terms of the relevant build out of these sites in comparison. I think what we'll be looking for in terms of the discussions we've had is a 10-year, and I think we're not looking at refunding perhaps if it's a contribution. I think after that 10-year period, and we'll have a better idea of what's coming forward. It harks back to maybe the first question you were asking this morning, reporter, about the in isolation. We would probably be looking for, if after that 10-year period there's no sign of Gilston or Whitecross coming, or Manuel Works coming forward, or they're falling out the local development plan, I think the relevant contribution would then be used for the standalone mitigation works, if that's the way we go down. How that's represented in a legal agreement that's obviously for my legal colleagues to try and decide on. But we'd be looking at not a full refund of the contribution, because there will be works in lieu of that anyway for the standalone application. I think what we're trying to do is safeguard the position of the full development sites coming forward. But if they don't come forward within a certain time period, the fallback position would be the standalone to the maximum value of what that contribution would be, and if there was any surplus funds contained within that, once the standalone mitigation proposals that we've yet to still agree on then the residual balance of that would then be refunded to the applicant accordingly. But it would be worse to whatever that maximum value of the, hopefully the 15 point whatever percent it is, I can't, 15.6%, whatever that value would be for the cost of the wider scheme. But it's a way of either the contribution over a 10-year period sitting to contribute to that wider scheme should other development sites. Sorry, I'm going on a wee bit, but I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. And I should have said, we're talking about two different situations. This would be if there wasn't going to be a fallback situation, because I'm answering these questions just to try and cover off whatever eventualities we're talking about. So you were suggesting 10 years might be appropriate, Mr. Burrell. I can see you with your hand raised.
It was not to state the obvious, I suppose, but circa 250 units will take potentially on a good day 5 years, maybe slightly more to build out, and that's being very, very optimistic. And then you're 5 years beyond that build out period, so you'll be 10 years from starting on site. Why we put a 5-year period in, because effectively you have the build out programme for the houses and then you have 5 years beyond that. So within that 10-12 year period, we'd like to think that there would be a decision being made on the full scheme for the Dougal Bailey or the Junction 4 signal line. Kevin's right, if within that time period we don't see that coming forward, then obviously we could do our lesser mitigation. And then be refunded, I suppose, the net difference or something. So there is a solution to it, but I think the 5 years we've put in is because it's 5 plus the build out programme of the development, which could be 5, 6, 7 years.
Okay, that's fine. And I mean, you can come back if you want, Mr. Collins or someone else in the council, but I understand the point you're making about there's been a long gestation period for development at Whitecross over a number of years and at Gilston, and so I take the general point without necessarily needing to explore it. The warning you're giving me is that, well, we don't have much certainty about these other sites and their prospects in terms of timescales. Therefore, you're arguing for a longer horizon to build that in. So I think that's fine. I understand people's positions. Unless there's anything else to be said on it, I'm happy that we can move on if you are. Okay, thank you.
Just one thing.
Yeah, of course.
If I may, you're going to have to stipulate when this money, if you decide it's going to have to be paid, you're going to have to stipulate or decide when it should be paid and how much is to be paid, or else leave it to the parties to agree. The principle is not in doubt, I think, but the detail is very much in doubt at the moment. I'm finding it very difficult to see why the council should hang on to somebody else's money for this very long period, when here we are today looking for planning permission and for a reasonably quick turnaround on that, which you mentioned last week, so that the company can make a plan which has got a reasonable time frame. Sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I think you see the message.
Yeah, I think I understand where people come from, and in terms of how much I need to say, yes, it feels like I need to do a little bit more than just leave it for the parties to decide, because there's clearly a difference in views about what any planning obligation needs to say about this, and that's why we have an appeal in the first place. So I probably can't just leave it entirely for the parties to determine, but I'll have a think about that. Okay, my question L7 we don't need to talk about because that's agreed now. So the final quick thing then was just about planning condition, proposed condition 17. I wondered whether it would be required if you were also had an obligation to do this, and the council said, well, the condition just reflects what Transport Scotland had asked for. Council doesn't think it's needed if there's going to be a planning obligation. So I just wanted to give Transport Scotland a chance to come back on this point. Do I really need this condition if we have a planning obligation which does the same thing?
Thank you. In terms of, part of it's to do with the time that the response was made. There was no clear indication at the time how the council actually proposed to deal with Junction 4, whether it was going to be by a condition or a Section 75 agreement. However, in keeping with the Circular Transport Scotland's preference is always for a condition rather than a Section 75 agreement where trunk road infrastructure is involved. That's just, as I say, a principle. In terms of the 3 sites we're dealing with, and this one in particular, it allows a consistency across the 3 sites associated with the cumulative mitigation, and it ties into the common scheme of mitigation, of being ahead, if you like. The other risk we see with Section 75 is Transport Scotland's not a party to Section 75, which means we have no visibility where an amendment or even a kind of discharge is applied for. That's not to say we can't accept a Section 75. Ultimately, as long as we're consulted on the terms that affect our interests, we can accept a Section 75. However, the risk remains regarding the no visibility of any amendments. Keeping the condition as recommended by ourselves means that it can be discharged by the signing of the Section 75 anyway, as long as we've had the kind of sight of the terms of that Section 75. I don't know if Jason's got any other comments he'd like to add to that.
John, I think you've covered any comments I would make fairly extensively there. The difficulty is that we make a recommendation at a point in time when the council hasn't had a chance to put it before their committee. So the starting point is a condition. Circular and planning obligations suggest that Section 75s are really the last resort, and then the other mechanisms should be looked at first. Therefore, we would always recommend the condition as a starting point. There are situations where a Section 75 we would see going hand in hand with a condition, particularly if there's a trigger point within the development when the works would be needed. We would still look to have a condition that would say by the X unit the works need to be done. All the Section 75 would do would be to define the mechanism whereby the contributions and the actual procurement of that scheme would happen. So in planning terms, the condition would still be relevant. I think in this situation where we've established that this is the lesser of the 3 sites, there isn't a trigger point within this development, the 225 units, that would need to hold until the works were delivered. The need for a condition of that nature wouldn't be necessary in this situation, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Burrow or Mr. Campbell, has the appellant get any thoughts on that? And then I'll give the chance to council if it's got anything to say also.
I don't, but maybe John has a comment.
Mr. Campbell, I can't. Sorry,
that's it now. Sorry. No, I think apart from the general guidance that conditions should be used if they can be, rather than Section 75s, because they take such a notoriously long time to conclude. I don't think I have any comment. It's obviously going to be a detailed condition, and I'm disappointed, frankly, that we don't have a draft to work on in the context of this examination, but we are where we are. So if the council's going to be able to produce one quite soon, and Mr. Vivian will be able to tell us that, then that's all well and good. But if not, it just has the potential for protracting the process.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell, for it. You said you don't have a condition. You mean you don't have a planning obligation?
An obligation. But I mean, that's a general point about the preference for conditions over planning obligations. But you may feel, I suppose, that the detail of this is such that it needs to be in an obligation because it's off-site and because it is necessarily detailed. I think that's a matter of planning judgment for you.
Okay, sorry, yes, Mr. Gillespie, you were going to say something, and I will come back to the council.
Sorry, it was just to hopefully clarify further on the point that Mr. Campbell had just made, that whilst I made the point that conditions are the preferable approach, if it's agreement by parties that the most appropriate way of dealing with the issue of contributions towards a scheme rather than the delivery of a scheme itself, etc., is through a Section 75 agreement, then Transport Scotland is generally content with that approach. I think the question just remained whether or not it should go hand in hand with a condition. And I think the wording that had been suggested by Transport Scotland, leaving it fairly flexible as to what the precise mechanism was, whether it be through physical works, whether it be through a contribution, etc., tried to cover all those eventualities. If we have a firm agreement that Section 75 is the way forward, Transport Scotland, I think, and John can confirm this, would be reasonably content with that approach, I think.
Indeed, yes. The precursor to that would be to be fully visible in terms of the terms that are agreed on the specific issues that affect the trunk roads. That was all we would need to see. That was all we would need to comment on. That's all we would need to confirm that Transport Scotland is content with the wording. The rest of the minutes of agreement, we wouldn't need to see the Section 75 other than those elements that affect the trunk road and Junction 4.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything the council wishes to add, having heard that?
Just to say, our approach here would be to take a financial contribution, and the way we would secure that is through a Section 75 planning obligation. I don't have any comments in terms of a condition sitting side by side with that, unless my colleagues have anything they want to add.
Okay, thank you. And of course, this might be the first of three planning obligations, sites, developments which affect the junction. It could conceivably, I just speculating, but it could conceivably be the case that this being the smallest and first, it might not to treat with effects on the trunk road in the same way that the others do. It might be that bigger or later schemes would require a condition because they take you to the point where you have that trigger point in terms of the trunk road works that this doesn't. So just I suppose a health warning that we're just talking about this development and this potential planning obligation and condition rather than a wider approach that binds anything else in. Okay. Anyway, I think that is all I wanted to say on, or that's all I wanted to hear about for hearing two. Is there any other final points that anyone feels they need to make? Okay, that's good. So I had suggested we take a short break and come back to do hearing 3 late this morning again, just so as we can make some progress with it. So I'll assume everyone's content with that. We'd set aside time for it. Mr. McDonald, yes, I was going to say...
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
I was going to say, you and Mr. Gillespie are not participants in the second section. You're very welcome to observe if you want to, but you're not participating. Was that just the point you were going to make, Mr. McDonald?
Indeed, thank you for the clarification. It was just to say that we would be taking a leave unless somebody was desperate to hear our views on anything that's not to do with us.
And I take it from that you're not desperate to hear all about my head road, so that's fine. Can I then just before we break off this, can I just list for you quickly the documents that I want to refer to in the second session, just so that you can, you'll have 10 minutes just to make sure you've got them. And we'll have time to find them as we go through, but I'm just giving you early notice. So it's all documents, obviously, that it's been put before me. So that's the hearing statements, i.e. the answers to my recent round of questions from both parties. The Council's appeal statement, or the Council's response to the appeal, its written submission. The appellant's response to that. Procedure Notice 4 was dealt with Marhead Road, so it's both the Council and the appellant's responses to that. So we're not necessarily going to get into these in forensic detail, but we might be passing over some of them and looking a bit more closely at others. There's the Ironside Farrar drawings for that scheme. I hope we might need to refer to them, but I hope we don't want you to look at them in detail. There are the various extracts from the DMRB that parties have put before me. So that's CD 109, CD 123, CD 127, GG 101, and GG 119. Some of those more relevant than others. There's the National Roads Development Guide, which the Council, I think, provided. And finally, there's the cost estimate that the Council did for upgrading Marhead Road. And I think that was submitted in response to Procedure Notice 4 as well. So those are the things that I at least will be touching on, and which it may be useful for you to have to hand. So my suggestion then, if Mr. Vivian, what kind of time for a restart would be best for you in terms of getting Mr. Crawford and being ready to assist? What do you think?
Uh, 20 minutes or so.
Okay, well, if everyone else is fine with that, what I'd suggest then, so Mr. McDonald and Mr. Gillespie can just leave the meeting. If the rest of us don't leave, but put our microphones and our videos off, and then we come back again at 11:10, ready to restart, and hopefully then Mr. Crawford can join. So Mr. Vivian, Mr. Crawford will need to join the link for hearing 2, and then we can just pick it up again rather than end this meeting if we just all pause for just now. So I will formally end this hearing 2 and say thank you all again for participation.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, good morning again, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Crawford. First time.
Good morning. Morning.
Mr. Crawford, I'm David Little. I'm the reporter appointed to determine this appeal at Crownerland Farm. I'm not going to repeat my kind of housekeeping points that I've been making at the start of each session, but just a reminder that we're recording the session and it will be posted on the website and retained. I don't know whether you've met Mr. Burrow or Mr. Campbell, but I might maybe ask them to say a quick hello to you and welcome to introduce themselves before we start.
Yes, Mr. Burrow and I know each other.
Morning, Graham.
Morning, Duncan.
Hello, Mr. Crawford. Good morning. I'm John Campbell. I'm representing the appellant. Nice to see you.
Good morning to you.
I am interested in what's on the wall behind you, though. Looks like
that was my hug from my 2 grandsons who hadn't seen me since lockdown. The youngest one's got autism and he's sheltering just now along with his mum.
It looks like
it came folded up in an envelope. I wondered what I was getting opened up. So, it's a hug from them.
it looks like Casper the Ghost. Thank you.
Yes, it's very white and blonde, the young one that's got autism.
Okay, thank you. So, as this is hearing 3, I think it is. It's the final one that we're going to be having. quite a lot to get through. We certainly won't get through all of it this morning, so we can come back this afternoon, or at least I'd be very surprised. And so if we can keep our answers, I've got a series of questions that I'm going to go through, and they're all quite specific. So if in answering, if you can just be as concise as is reasonable and just answer the question I ask, but I will give people the chance to bring in at the end a natural point. So there's other things that I haven't mentioned that you want to say, but my main focus will want to be on just the questions that I have still left, having had all the evidence. And Mr. Crawford, I was telling the other parties before we broke up this morning what documents that I was going to be referring to. So hopefully you've got a note of those, or you'll be able to access them.
Yeah, there's piles round about me.
Well, I have the benefit of 3 screens, so mine's are all on PDFs in front of me. Okay. So the first set of questions I had are a follow-up in the first instance to my question M2. So I just want to bottom out this question of the relevance of the DMRB or bits of it to the appeal proposal. I must admit, my own understanding had been that DMRB only applies to trunk roads, but maybe that's wrong. The A803 isn't a trunk road, nor is Mirehead Road. So in the appellant's response to the council's appeal submissions, and I don't know whether you were involved in that, Mr. Burrow, but the view there is expressed that DMRB is the applicable standard for Mirehead Road. That's in paragraphs 3.2 and 3.3. Don't need to look at it, I don't think. But Mr. Burrow, you did prepare the appellant's response to procedure notice 4, and that again refers to the DMRB, including to CD 123. So, and I was just a bit confused by this answer to M2. Are you saying that because these aren't trunk roads, the DMRB is not the right standard, or that it might not be relevant at all? I just want to understand where we are.
I'm muting it. No, I think it's a grey area. They aren't trunk roads. They're not strategic roads. The A803 isn't, and certainly Mirehead Road isn't. I think DMRB gives good guidance for road design, but my point there is that it's going to be taken in the context of what we're looking at. We're looking at an existing. Maybe you could class the A803 as a district distributor or maybe a local distributor, and a Mirehead Road is certainly not a strategic road. So my point there was interpretation of DMRB, and it has to be taken in the context of what we're looking at in the road infrastructure. Maybe haven't put that across properly in my documentation, and that is particularly in reference to. The Ghost Island Junction has been put in place in context of DMRB, so it does fit with standard, and it was the issue with the Splitter Island that was referred to in the council's documentation that I didn't think was appropriate for a minor road that Mirehead Road was.
Okay, thank you. We will come back to some of those issues you raised, the Splitter Island, how you classify or characterise Mirehead Road just now. I'm interested in some of that material, so we will have a bit of a discussion on all of that. So, is there so you're saying DMRB isn't very helpful, or is there another bit of it instead that I should be looking at in terms of this road?
It's a difficult way. No, it gives relevant guidance, and I think the whole context of where we are coming from is that we're not designing a new road. We're using infrastructure that exists to service a development of circa 225, 250 units. So it's got to be looked in that context, and that's where I think we're coming at it from different positions.
Okay, Mr. Crawford, I will bring you in. I've just a couple of things I'm just exploring. I think just now with
yeah, that's fine.
With Mr. Burrow. So okay, so I have various sections of the DMRB before me, those CD documents. you're saying that they're helpful guidance, but they need to put in the context of what we've got before me. So, Mr. Crawford, then, and again, we will come on to the local roads development guide and some of these questions, but what's your kind of response at this stage, and what's the correct standard for the road?
I have to revert to the National Roads Development Guide, which quite clearly shows, in fact, take a step back, our local adopted roads hierarchy, the 803 is a strategic route, therefore DMRB standards apply to that for us as a local authority. Because of that, any junctions come off, it should comply with that standard as well. When you go back to National Roads Development Guide, it quite clearly states that any main access road to development, when you look at the structure around about the, just give me 2 seconds here, the site evaluation and
can I just, Mr. Crawford, just while you're looking for that, I'm just interested. You said there, just if I get it right, in your you consider the council has the A803 as a strategic road.
Strategic route, yes, in our hierarchy of roads. In
your hierarchy of roads, and therefore you apply the DMRB to that and to junctions off it.
Yes.
I don't think I've seen that. I'm not saying necessarily have to have it, but so there is a document that the council has that identifies the hierarchy and what you're going to do with and how you would treat projects affecting it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It all stems back to responsibilities under the Road Traffic Act 1988 to assess roads and do all the necessary checks. I think the only valid way we can check it is to do a road safety audit. It's the only valid way we can confirm that we have done something to amend any problems that show up.
Can I just ask Mr. Birrell then, at this point, this idea of there being a hierarchy? I mean, I'm not a roads expert, so I don't feel too bad about not knowing this. But the council's got this document. It sets out what the hierarchy of the roads are. It says that, or if I'm hearing it right, it says that the DMRB will be applied to them. That includes junctions off such roads. The A803 is one of these roads. Were you aware of all this, or are you aware of all this?
It's an interpretation of use of language, I suppose. Days of old, you had local distributors, district distributors, primary access routes, etc. So it's their interpretation of calling it a strategic road. But I'm not suggesting that DMRB isn't applicable, because the junction has been put in place in accordance with DMRB. So the Ghost Island junction is in accordance with DMRB, with the tapers, the diverged tapers, etc. I think the radii at the junction are in accordance with DMRB. I think the only place where there is a slight disagreement is gradient approaches, and it's how you then classify Mirehead Road. I don't think Mirehead Road is a strategic road. It's not a strategic primary route. It's not serving, I think the description from the council was that it was serving major areas and economic activity, etc. It's not. It's a local distributor road serving a village. So that's where we've got the disagreement.
So could I ask Mr. Birrell to go just a little slower?
Sorry,
there's a lot in this answer, and you're going like an express train. If you could just slow up a little bit, that would be good.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. No, that's fine, Mr. Birrell, and we will come on. I have noted that description from the council as to what Mirehead Road is, or certainly what it would become in their view, and we will come on to that because I'm interested in views on that. Mr. Crawford described the A803 as a strategic road, I think he said.
Yes.
Do you disagree with that characterisation?
I would class it possibly more of a district distributor road. I think the council have their own classifications. It's not a strategic road in the context of how we understand strategic roads. The M9 is a strategic road.
Okay, that's fine. There's this. part of the disagreements here about what you need to do to the roads are because of their how you characterise them. So I'm surprised nobody's put this hierarchy in front of me up until now. I didn't even know it existed up until this point. But anyway, Mr. Crawford, you were sorry, I deflected you, but I think you were getting something out to talk about, weren't you?
Yes, we have adopted the National Roads Development Guide as our standard for roads in the Falkirk Council area. When you go to anywhere from page 15 on, it gives you a description of how we'd expect the roads to be. The graphics on page 17, at the bottom of page 17, are an ideal example of how we would view Mirehead Road. The bit from Mirehead Road up to Railbridge will have no, or virtually no pedestrian traffic on it. It will have a lot more vehicles. For that reason, when you look at the table on page 19 of the DMR, of the National Development Guide, it puts Mirehead Road into the category of being a DMRB standard road for that section. It then changes as it goes past the rail bridge down through the town. You'll see the different types here as it talks about in there. So to my mind, based on that, and it's the opinion of my colleagues that I've consulted, the lad that did the line alignment for me, that should be DMRB standard, that section of Mirehead Road.
Okay. You referred there to the graphics on and I think you cover some of this in the response to procedure notice, don't you? And I will come back to it maybe. You said a table, was that's table 1, is that right?
Table 1, yes.
So which I found that a little bit difficult to interpret, table 1. What is it the case then that you have a road and it will fit into one of those blocks, is that right? And then that gives you what guidance to use or what standard to use. That's how that works.
That's correct. Yeah.
So where in that are we talking about? The top left or
top left, dark blue, and maybe even light blue. As you go up that road, it will change down these standards. It will become designing streets when we come into the housing estate, the new housing development. It'll be designed. It'll be the orange area, possibly going through the existing village, because we need to do. I think Duncan did prepare some basic traffic management schemes for in the middle there to try and improve the flow of traffic through the village. But it's just something we have to look at because there's pedestrians and crossings and everything have to go in there, which changes the context of the route. It will still be a major route into what I would class as a route into Whitecross, because Whitecross is only going to expand.
Okay, that's fine. That's helpful.
That table doesn't give values, so it gives high, low traffic flows. Mirehead Road in a peak hour traffic flow will be 200 two-way movements in the morning peak, we're predicting, with an average annual daily traffic movement of 1,000 vehicles. To give you that in the context of the A023, I think that's up at 10,000 vehicles per hour. So I think that table has to be taken in the context of actual vehicle flows, and I would dispute that Mirehead Road is classed as high traffic flow, and I don't know how we get up into the DMRB compliant section, because it doesn't give you any indication of what that flow is.
Okay, I was going to move on to a different question, but Mr. Crawford, have you got anything you want to say in response to what Mr. Burrell said there?
No, it is. It's all. Yeah, it's a matter of judgment. It is judgment on where we go with it. The thing is, we discussed it within Falkirk Council, and that the conclusion we came to is that section we need to be upgraded to that standard.
Okay. So is that standard, and we'll come on to what exactly we're talking about, but is that standard applicable to the road now or only after the development?
From a Falkirk Council perspective, we would want the road to be in before the development starts to be occupied. Sorry,
that's not what I meant. What I mean is you're saying post-development that the appropriate standard for the road is X. Right? My question is, if you look at that road now and current travel levels, does it require, or should it have had the same standard. I'm trying to understand whether it's you're saying the road really isn't up to the standard it currently is at, or whether it's fine now. It's just that the development takes it into the next level where it needs that upper standard.
The increase in capacity caused by the development is what would take it up into that. That's how I would look at it. The existing village is quite small. It's coping at the moment, barely, but like I say, the road has not come near any, even DMRB National Road Development Standard in any form or fashion, that road. It's a single track road that's been widened by default over the years, the various layers of asphalt that have gone onto it.
Okay, that's fine. We'll come back over some of this territory, I think, Mr. Burrell, so I'll give you the chance later on to come in on some of the kind of detail points that brings in. Thank you. Right. So I'm still in question M3. Some of these we'll spend more time on than others, and your answer to M3, Mr. Burrell, and you refer there in the second paragraph to the WS 2+1. So that's a wide single 2+1 carriageway. Two lanes in one direction, one in the other way. Yeah, and I think there's a reference to that in CD 127. So, but here that isn't the design of this road. The 803 throughout. It's just that there's a passing lane, if you like, or a right turn lane at the junction. So you're saying that this WS 2+1 reference isn't the MRB isn't relevant. Is there another standard, if you like, that you're telling me is instead?
I think that was relating. Yeah, so that was relating to the splitter island that was proposed, and the standard of what the 803 is. I think there's a latter section in DMRB that talks about minor roads and how they can be provided with a splitter island that is either painted on or has a surface area of roughly 4.5 metres, but isn't as large and as the suggested one that's been put forward by the council. That was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, and that was section 5.13.
3, yeah.
Yeah. So, what does the council have a view on that then? So, two possible standards, if you like, or approaches based on DMRB.
I approached this on the worst case scenario, hence the reason I said 5253. The second section Duncan referred to, yes, I'm in agreement that could be a lower traffic road, but the different standard, the easier standard of island to put in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, section 513. Duncan mentioned that. Yeah, it could go down to that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. I can move on to question M3. To be honest, I don't really want to follow up much on it. It's just an observation, really, that the council's clarified that it was one of my colleagues who consented Campbell's facility without any need for junction improvements, and that's fine. I don't think we need to delve any further into that. I need to decide this appeal on the basis of the evidence before me now. And I was going to ask Mr. Crawford a different question, and you've maybe answered it though, or maybe we'll come on to it. But what it was going to be is that do you think the junction is safe or up to an adequate design standards at the moment? So similar to what I asked for Mirehead Road generally, based on current volumes and the types of traffic using it, is that junction safe? Is it up to standard? However, the best way to describe it is.
It's definitely not up to standard. I agree with Mr. Burrell on the fact that the lanes on the 803 are all correct as per the MRB. The problem comes in the gradients in Mirehead Road. The approach gradient does not come anywhere near compliance. In fact, I would say this whole process has highlighted to me how bad it actually is. I never really paid much. I've stayed in Lithgow since 1979 and travelled that road many a time. I've never paid that much attention to the junction, other than watch for people coming down it when they're able to stop in ice. It doesn't comply in that sense. The rest of the layout, horizontal layout, when you look at the plan, it looks okay as per DMRP, but the gradient is the issue. And for that reason, I have to say it isn't safe.
Can I just point out that obviously there's records taken of any incidents and accidents, and there haven't been any reported incidents or accidents at the junction since the Campbell's Meat Factory opened, which intensified its use not only by general traffic, but also by HGVs and large vans. And I think Falkirk Council run accident investigation and prevention measures, and I think if it was flagged up as a completely unsafe junction, it would have been flagged up for work to be done in it in the past so many years since Campbell Meat Factory's operated, and it hasn't. So I think that is an opinion, and I respect Graham Forey's opinion, but you know, based on empirical evidence of accident data, there haven't been any accidents.
Can I just make a comment there on that as well, please?
Yeah, of course.
One of the biggest influences on the junction was 2000 when the brickworks closed. The amount of traffic came out of that was way above what Campbell's ever had in that place. I think that's been one of the biggest impacts on the junction over the last 10 years, I would say. Yeah, that's been the biggest impact. And the figures before indicated before that date indicated there was an issue, but since then it has been, we've been reasonably lucky with it.
Okay, thank you. We will come on to talk about gradients, and just so I understand what's there just now, what the various kind of standards or proposals would involve. In fact, that might well be the next question I come to. Just bear with me. Okay, yeah, so this is question M4 then, and I asked both the council and the appellant to respond to that. So just looking at the appellant's response first of all, well, I assume it was you, Mr. Burrow. You said the existing road sits at 3% for the first 7 metres, then rises to 7% by the time it reaches 15 metres. I think I saw a reference to a 10% in some of the evidence. I don't know whether that's further along or whether that's over the other side of that hill. Do you know, Mr. Burrow, or I'll come back to you if not, Mr. Crawford, where it gets to 10%?
It's I'm just looking at the figures. It was done when this came in originally in 2014. A survey was done by my road safety officer, and it's shown 2.93% for the first 7.5 metres. From 7.5 to 17 metres, it's 6.97. From 17.25 metres chainage to about 34.75, it goes to 9.7%. And for the next 10 metres, it levels out at 8.8, but then it goes over the hump and then goes back down at 10% again on the other side of the hump. Hence the blind summit. Okay, that's helpful. So, roughly speaking, it's about 3% for 7.5 metres, then 7% for another 10 metres or so, then about 10% up to 35 metres change, levels off a little bit over the hump, and then back down the hill at greater than 10%. That's fine. We'll come back on to matters of gradient. So, Mr. Bowell, I guess the Ironside Farrer works, I think, was proposing to reduce the gradient to 5%. Yeah,
for, I think, for the final 15. Is that right? For the final 15 metres? Yeah. So it would increase the gradient for the first 7.5 metres from 3 up to 5, but beyond that, the gradient would be reduced. So it's kind of leveling out or sweetening out that slope a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's trying to make it more consistent. The reason behind the gradient of 15 metres and over 15 metres, from my experience with trunk road design, is for HGVs. So it's to allow a flat platform for an HGV to be approaching a junction. Secondary to that is the private car and smaller vehicles, but certainly projects I've done on the trunk road at the A702 roundabout at Pennycook, for example, this was a lot of debate about the approach gradients and why they were set. So it's trying to get the best of a situation working within the context of the road space that we have and the control of third-party land. So that's try and get a longer, relatively flat section. 5% it can be, yes, it is over the recommendation of the 4% in DMRB, but taking it over that 15 metres was felt to be more appropriate.
Okay, so that's fine. So and you were saying, I think I heard you say right. I think you said that your understanding is the reason it's 15 metres is primarily for HGVs, albeit that there might be other reasons. So in your professional view, we have the junction design as it is. As a result of the proposed development, is your view that no works to the junction are required, or are you saying that the Ironside Farrer works are those which are required and would suffice? Just so as I'm clear.
I think we would do the Ironside Farrer works and potentially put anti-skid surfacing on the approach to the junction as well. I don't think it's warranted to have a ghost splitter island. There's no pedestrian activity in that location, and there's no reason to have a splitter island to demarcate turning movements because the junction's functioning fine. There haven't been, I've just checked the accident stats, there haven't been any accidents at the junction in the past 10 years. So I think the proposals are to improve it within the road space that we have control of, and to make it, as best we can. It has functioned as a junction for a number of years without issue. Okay,
but I mean, I appreciate that's what's proposed, and I may be asking the wrong question, and tell me if I am, but I suppose what I'm saying is, what I'm interested in is, in your view, as a professional, are you saying that you don't think any works is necessary, but you're doing this as a compromise, or are you saying that actually I think some works are necessary and what we can do to the Ironside Farrer is sufficient, but necessary still?
I think I see where you're coming from. The junction functions and operates just now. I think we accept that we are increasing traffic on Mirehead Road to a level. So as a responsible development, I think that it'd be appropriate to improve the junction to try and get a situation that's acceptable to the council, almost a compromise situation with the council. We cannot achieve the council's requirement, the DMRB requirement, because we're not building a new road. For 250 units, it does not warrant a full redesign of Mirehead Road to full DMRB standards, the implication that has on third-party land, etc. So this is an improvement to a level that's achievable and affordable, I suppose, as well.
Okay, thank you.
So, can I just add something quickly?
Yeah.
You will recall that the Ironside Farrer Roads assessment was based on the 1,500 house allocation, not on a development of the same size as is proposed here.
Well, I'm going to go on to Mr. Crawford on that, because I'm not. Well, Mr. Vivian's raising his hand, but it might be that my question addresses the point you were going to make, Mr. Vivian. My understanding is that the Ironside Farrer works have been agreed by the council as an interim solution to allow some development to go ahead. I think in part of the part of the former new settlement, but that would be in advance of a more extensive improvements to the road and the junction as the full new settlement was built out. Is that the point you were going to make, Mr. Vivian?
Yeah, it was. The context was that the main access would be a new road through to the A801, and improvements to My Head Road would serve as a ultimately as a secondary access, but initially as a way of allowing approximately 200 units to go forward. The other point was certainly that scheme was under consideration, but we never actually got to the point of approving those or accepting those on-site drawing proposals as a scheme acceptable to the council.
Okay, so yeah, that's a helpful reminder. So there was going to have been a different link to the A801 westwards. So, but this would have been done first to serve the development up to the point at which this other 808 link to the A801 was put in. The council, you said the council never agreed it. Certainly at officer level, though, that the discussions were on that basis, weren't they? That the Ironside Farrer works would have been an acceptable interim solution. I suppose it might be for you, Mr. Vivian, or it might be for Mr. Crawford. I'm just trying to understand why it looks to have been acceptable to the council before as an interim measure for more houses. I think it's 250 maybe for more houses, albeit interim, than is now proposed now here. So sorry, yeah.
What I was going to say was it was called, I think we named it temporary main access, and it was for the first 200 houses. The site was in difficulty by that time. The infrastructure cost for the 801 access, the main roads, was coming up to 17 million in road bond prices. Scottish Water were looking for large quantities of money to upgrade the sewage works and everything. And any big site that's remote like that is going to be very difficult to keep it viable financially. I hear what Duncan is saying about the costs against 225 houses, but this now is the only access to this development, including the brickworks. When the brickworks come on, the brickwork sites come on, the road would need to be upgraded again to a full 7.3 metre road. I hear what Duncan's saying, it's been very difficult to put this against a 225 house development, but unfortunately they've come in first, and from the bottom line for me is we need to have a suitable standard of road to go in there to service that in Whitecross. And the stuff that was put forward by Ironside Farrer were feasibility drawings and feasibility stuff as far as I was concerned. We had a quick look and it became very apparent very quickly that they could not achieve the 6 metre road, and it was agreed a 1.2 pass we'd gone at that time. They could not achieve that within the boundaries of the existing road. They would have put retaining structures into everything. And the other big issue for them was going to be drainage, because effectively that is a new road, and SEPA would have taken the view that the road water needs to be treated. At the moment, road water from that road goes directly into shocks, into the ditches and into the fields. That's no longer tenable for road surface water, it has to be treated. So that would have meant more land required for suds basins or ponds to treat the water. And it never went any further than that, and unfortunately Morstons went in administration not long after that. And I think KPMG came in and we discussed it again with KPMG, and we never at any time approved any drawings as suitable for an access for any purpose at any time.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah, sorry.
No, just to clarify, it's not the only road into Whitecross. Obviously, you've got the B825 to the south. You've got Bloor Road out to the west, and you've got Station Road out to the east. So I just wanted to get that in, that it's it's not the only access into Whitecross.
Yeah. Okay. We will come on to the difference between what the appellant envisages is done through the Ironside Farrer works, or I mean, I'm calling that just by shorthand, but through those drawings and what the council's asking for. But that's fine just now. So in question 5, I've asked why the gradient of 5 is proposed rather than 4. I mean, I think I understand the issue. The problem is the appellant sees it is that it just means more cut would be needed, and therefore the effects of going to 4 degrees rather than 4% rather than 5% means more cut, therefore more lateral works, work spreading laterally further out into the adjacent land, and therefore more cost other landowners. That's the problem with doing 4% rather than 5%. Is that right? In short.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to move on to question 6, which is about these gradients, and the DMRB talks about shall and should, I think, and I thought I understood them, and the council tells me I did understand them right, but Mr. Burrell, you thought that statement didn't make sense. I thought it did. Are you happy now that it does?
I am. I've had explained by Graham, so I've had an English lesson. So
No,
DMRB was a lot more straightforward back in the day. It used to have black boxes, which were mandatory requirements, and things were a lot more straightforward. So I've had an English lesson from Graham in that respect. So yes, I accept that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with Duncan. The previous version was much simpler.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you. So there's reference in there to CD 123. So I want to have a look at a couple of bits of that if we can, because I am interested in this issue though about what is the right gradient here, or what DMRB is saying. So it's CD 123. If you have it, I have it as a PDF now. My PDF is 75 pages long because it's got some emails at the start of it. So it's page 28 of the document that I'm going to look at first. It's page 33 of my PDF. So let's just find that. Yeah, so this is, I think this is the section. So it's 5.3, where we have the shall and the should, right? And then the note says, providing a relatively flat section prevents drivers having to perform a hill start, which reduces the risk of vehicles stalling or inadvertently rolling out into the major road. So notwithstanding, so that seems to apply. A hill start meaning that's a gradient, a maximum gradient up into the junction, but it's also talking about the gradient down into the junction, hence either hill start or else rolling out. But then if we go up to 2.1.2, which is on page 11 of the document or 16 of the PDF. So I don't know if you have that there.
Stopping is referring to stopping sight distance.
Stopping sight distance, different thing.
It's well, this is under section 2 junction selection. Is that right? Yeah. And then okay, so I'll say what I was going to say, and then if I've got it wrong, you tell me. So it says priority junction should only be located on level ground, or where any approach that is in a downhill gradient does not exceed 2 degrees over the applicable desirable minimum stopping sight distance. All right, okay, so that's not 2 degrees, that's 2 degrees over a standard. Right,
yeah.
Right, okay, that's fine. Excellent, right, that clears up my confusion there, thank you. Okay, that's fine, that's clarified the questions I had for M6. I thought we were going to spend a little longer than that, but that's good. So there's a bit of overlap here, so apologies that I seem to be darting back and forward on some of these issues. It's just the easiest way for me to follow up on the hearing statements. So, Mr. Burrow, or Mr. Crawford, let's Mr. Burrow first. So what the Ironside Farrer drawing is showing is 5 degrees over that first 15 metres. What about beyond that first 15 metres for the rest of the what is now the humpback? What happens in there?
It's trying to work within the road space we've got, so it will we'll flatten it out as best we can over that section. So where we have the hump, we'll try, and I think it does show trying to take a section off that. But the problem with removing a hump, as you've highlighted earlier, if you remove a hump, you then have issues either side of the road to accommodate that level reduction. So as much as possible will be done to manage those gradients within the road space we have control of.
Okay, but the drawing doesn't give me gradients just now.
I can't zoom in enough on my screen to get the gradient that was proposed.
I understood. Sorry, Duncan.
Unless you can zoom in, I can't get it zoomed in on my screen enough.
Mr. Crawford, you were going to say something.
My last meeting with Ironside Farrer was looking at retention either side. They were looking at sheet piling because they were talking about taking the 5% gradient straight through. So there's going to be about 1.5 metre of cut there, I think. So they're looking at, because there's a lot of utilities either side, telecom stuff and a rising main, they were looking at using sheet piling and then stone wall on the front end to create a retention to allow the road to go through at that 5%.
I wasn't aware of that being the case.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't be, Duncan. It was the last meeting I had on the way to look at that. It was Neve, Kennedy, and they came out to a meeting and had a look at, and it was the most sensible way to be able to do it was to sheet pile, because that meant you wouldn't have to attain land either side.
Okay, that's fine. Right. I just want to move on to question M8 then, if people are content. And this is about this splitter island. The way I'm doing this is to focus on the junction for now, and then we'll come back to the kind of widening issues about the road. Although I accept they're linked. So I asked the simple question of what's the benefits of the splitter island. And the council's told me what they are, but I suppose not all at-grade priority junctions have splitter islands. So my question is, you've told me what the benefits are. Why is one needed here in particular?
I think because of the nature of the 803. I've got knowledge of the 803 from previous occupation. You'll see the qualifications I put in. I was in the police. And I've got good knowledge of it now, and having lived there. It's a very fast road at times, and it would allow the cars coming down, vehicles coming down, some protection. It also forces the vehicles in the centre lane wanting to turn right to move right forward to the right position turn, whereas now at the moment a lot of them, you watch them, they cut across. So if there's another vehicle sitting there, they're liable to flip the front of it. That's where I'm looking at for the splitter island from, and that's why I'm looking for it.
Okay, so it's fast, and that idea of vehicles cutting across, is there any reason to think people are any more likely to do that here than at any other junction? Is there anything about, or is that just a general traffic issue which might argue for a need for splitter islands?
Observations of myself is that people they know it's a fast road and try to get off there quickly, and quite often they cut across to get off the road quickly. And that's personal observation, watching drivers on the road. Because I've had a good look at this road on a number of occasions, just standing back and watching to see what's going on. And plus, driving on it, I'm usually on it at least twice a week, sometimes more. And you see vehicles that people don't want to stop in the middle of that ghost island. I think they're scared of it. I think that's the trouble, that they hesitate a wee bit. And rather than sit there, they try and push through quickly to get off the road.
Mr. Birrell, do you get any observations on what Mr. Crawford said there?
Like Graham, I've maybe not driven it as much as Graham. It's a very quiet junction from the side road. I think that's one of the reasons why people can potentially do that if they want to. I don't agree that a splitter island would benefit. There's no pedestrian movements. There's no street lighting in that area. I don't see what benefit a splitter island would provide. Traffic cutting across, that's a common occurrence with Ghost Island junctions that don't have splitter islands, and as you pointed out, a lot don't. The nature of the side road doesn't warrant it, I don't think. We could, if it was deemed appropriate, a painted on island could probably be provided. But I personally don't feel it's needed.
I was going to ask about that, so just do it now. I'll come back to you, Mr. Crawford. But Mr. Birrell, do you think there's room within the current highway boundary to do the painted-on island?
There's enough space, given the visibility splay and the verges that there are, that you would be able to potentially put in a form of white lining splitter island. Yes, if that was warranted. Yeah.
Okay, there's enough space potentially. So, Mr. Crawford, you mentioned the cutting across issue. So, a painted island wouldn't physically stop that, would it? Would it reduce it to some degree, though?
These traffic management things tend to have an effect for a while, but most of the people using that junction will be used to it, and they'll know what they can and can't do at that junction. So strangers coming, it would be a good thing. You know, somebody new coming to the area, it would be a good thing. But people that are driving that road every day will know exactly what they can and can't do. And I would suspect most of the people from Whitecross are the people using that road.
So in that sense, you're saying that it wouldn't have the same. It wouldn't prevent, for people used to driving the road, it wouldn't prevent cutting across to the same degree as a physical island would.
Yeah, that's correct. The other thing I was going to add is splitter islands are they're not specifically designed for pedestrian crossing, but where you do have pedestrian crossing, you have to widen them up to give at least room for a wheelchair or a pram or a bicycle to sit across the island without, and plus the fact you probably have to put pedestrian railings on it, which means another clearance of 400 to 600 from the curb back to the railing. So the island become inordinately big. And that's why I was looking at it. It'd just be a normal splitter island that would only have signage on it. If anything, it wouldn't have anything else on it. So that would narrow it down enough to.
So do you think even a physical island, narrow one, there might be space in the road for it? Or is it's too early to say that?
I don't think it's been served. I've measured it on plan, I've measured it on site, but until you actually see the lane widths you need coming off and going out, you need a set lane width either side to get through, and I wouldn't like to anticipate that until there's a proper design done.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. It's 12 o'clock. I kind of lost track of the time. This has been going very well, therefore I've not been looking at the time. I did say we have a break planned between 12 and 1. Let me just see if I've got any more questions on this question, Emmy, if you're okay for a couple more minutes, and then we can take a break until 1 o'clock. Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So again, I mean, these questions perhaps have been superseded a little bit by what you've told me already, but it's not. It doesn't seem that there's a standard metric or kind of formula or that can be applied. That these are matters of judgment. But I suppose if I go back to the question I asked Mr. Crawford earlier about is the junction safe just now, and I think he said it isn't safe. So one of the things that would make it safer is the splitter island. Is that right, Mr. Crawford? Yeah.
That would be my opinion. Yes. Yeah.
I think your metric for measuring safety is accidents, and I think there have been no accidents at that specifically at that junction for the last 5-10 years. So a splitter island may improve a situation, may people stop people cutting the corner, but the metric for measurement is accidents, and there haven't been any.
Okay, understood. Right. Okay. That was all I was going to ask. On actually, I'll tell you what. M9 was also about splitter islands. So just let me check. I think we've probably addressed this. The questions I had. Bear with me a second. Yeah, no, we've covered that ground. Okay, that's fine. The next set of questions I have are all about moving away from the junction and on to what's envisaged for the rest of Marhead Road. So unless there's any final points people want to make in the junction, I would propose we just take a break, and then we would log in again at 1 o'clock using the other link for the afternoon session. Is that, are people content with that?
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Quite happy.
Okay, thank you very much then. So I'll just end this meeting and we'll come in again in the new link at 1 o'clock. Thank you.